A is 1. B is positive 2. C is negative 8. Make your X. What number will go on top? Negative 8. And what number goes on the bottom? 2. If you need to, you can take out your charts, your multiplication charts. But you're looking for 2 numbers that will multiply to be negative 8 and add to a positive 2. Anybody know the numbers? What are my numbers that I'm looking for? Positive 4 and negative 2. Good job. All right, so now let's go ahead and take out our GCFs. All right, so when we take out our GCFs, we have an X, a X. In this box, we have 2 times 4. So we can take out our negative 2, and here we're taking out our positive 4. Now remember, when you see this word solve, that just means we're adding one more step. So let's go ahead and take our 2 factors. X minus 2 equals 0. X plus 4 equals 0. Go ahead and find your 2 x-intercepts. So remember, the x-intercept is always, because you have to solve it, it's opposite of the factor. So if I have a factor at x minus 2, my solution is at x equals positive 2. That's my first x-intercept. And where would my second x-intercept be? Negative 4, good. So we're going to sketch our parabola, and we already have 3 points. I know I have x-intercepts at 2 and negative 4. Does anyone know where my y-intercept would be? Because we also know our y-intercept. One of these at the top is my y-intercept. Which one of these 3 numbers is my y-intercept? Is it A, B, or C? C. This number is always your y-intercept. So I have a y-intercept at negative 8. So let's go ahead and plot these 2 points. On the x-axis, I'm going to put a point at positive 2. And then I'm putting a point at negative 4. And on the y-axis, I have one at negative 8. All right. Last thing, is this graph going to be a smile or a frown? And how do you know? What kind of a parabola am I going to have? A smile. How did you know that, Juan? The A. Yeah, good. The A is positive. So let's go ahead and draw our graph. And that would be my sketch. All right, any questions about how we work through that? All right, let's take our notes out. And now we're going to learn, well, tomorrow we're going to do the quadratic formula. But today we're only going to do the discriminant, which is a very important part of the quadratic formula, which is why you need a calculator. So turn to page 10 in your notes. Have you all seen the quadratic formula before? Is this something you have heard of? Give me a thumbs up if you heard of the quadratic formula. Anybody? Brand new? You've heard of it? Okay. So not every quadratic can be factored. Because remember, we have to find two numbers that multiply and add. Well, that's not always possible. But the one thing you can always depend on is the quadratic formula. This is the quadratic formula. Let me zoom in. This is the quadratic formula right here. You do not need to memorize it. It will be given to you on the next test. The part under the square root, this piece right here, is called my discriminant. Now that does not tell you the solution, but it tells you how many solutions we're looking for. So the expression under the radical, I want you to write on that line. Can you write b squared minus 4ac? That is called the discriminant, and it's really, really important. And that's all we're going to talk about today is the discriminant. The reason why it's important is because it will tell us how many solutions we are looking for. All right, so let's just say, for example, that we do it and the number we get is negative. What that tells me is that I have no solutions. No real solution. There are 0 solutions. All right, let's say you get 0. If you get 0, when you do b squared minus 4ac, that tells you have how many solutions? 1. How many times does that graph touch the x-axis? 1 time, so it has 1 solution. And your last one is that it could be positive. And if it's positive, looking at this parabola, how many times does this cross the x-axis? It crosses here and here. So today, our answers are only going to be 0, 1, or 2. All right, so let's look at example 4. You always start by setting it equal to 0. That's really, really important. So when I'm looking at this one, do you notice how this says equals -1? Well, the first thing I need to do is bring that -1 over. How am I going to bring over -1? What's the opposite of subtracting 1? Adding 1. The opposite of subtraction is adding. So I'm going to bring this -1 over. And when I bring it over, it changes to a positive. That's really important. Before you do the quadratic formula, before you find the discriminant, before you factor to solve, it has to equal 0. All right, so now let's go ahead and find our discriminant. What is the A value? What is A? 4. What's B? And what's C? positive 1. So in order to find the discriminant, the formula says b squared minus 4ac. And to be consistent, because this is squared, I always want you to put this in parentheses. If you type this in your calculator like this, you will get the wrong answer every single time. It is so important that in your calculators, you add parentheses around the -3, just like that. So pick up your calculators and I want you to type it in exactly like that. You have to have parentheses and the exponent has to be on the outside. So I want you to type that in your calculator. I'm going to come around and see that we have the right number. First, let me make sure I know the number. All right, type it in. Okay, that looks good. So that exponent that you put on the inside has to be on the outside, because that's not possible. It's important that the exponent is outside of the parentheses. So you gotta put that in parentheses and you have to square it. So that's not the right number.
Oh, yeah.
So the negative, let's see, this is the negative. That's minus sign, so you gotta use that one. Yeah. So it's -3 squared minus 4ac. All right, if you got anything other than -7, you did not type it in your calculator right. So so what did we get? We got -7. So because it's negative, what does that mean? How many solutions am I going to have? None. So whenever it's negative, that means you have a parabola that does not touch the x-axis. So there are 0 solutions. So today we're just finding the discriminant. We're not doing the whole quadratic formula. We're just finding the discriminant. All right, let's fill in our table real quick on page 11. Fill this in because it's not filled in. This is the basis of what we're talking about today. Page 11 in our notes. So the discriminant test, if it's positive, if you get any positive number, that means you have 2 solutions. If you get a negative number, you have no solutions. And if you get 0, you have 1 solution. So we're going to jump around. There's 6. We're going to do 3 or 4, and then we'll end there. Now, before you start, though, you have to make sure it's set equal to 0. That's the only way you can mess this up. So when I'm looking at this first one, does this say equal 0? Is this equal to 0? All right, so what would A, B, and C equal? What's A? What's B? And what's C? All right, in your calculator, remember we're only doing b squared minus 4ac. Negative 8 squared minus 4 times a times c. Type that in your calculators. I'm going to come around and see what we got. Always put parentheses around that first number. But you see how, that square has to be on the outside. You have to type it in exactly the way I wrote it. All right, thumbs up if you got positive 100. Who got positive 100 for the discriminant? All right, good. So because we got 100, so because it's positive, it doesn't matter what the number is. We're just looking at the sign of that number. Because it's positive, how many solutions do we have? We have 2 solutions. All right, let's go ahead and do number 2. Is it already set equal to 0? All right, so A is 9. B is 6. C is 1. In your calculators, you're going to put in, I'm always put that B in parentheses, B squared minus 4 times A times C. Go ahead, type that in your calculators. All right, what did you all get for your discriminant?
0.
Who got 0? So when you get 0, it doesn't happen often. What does that mean? 1 solution. There's only 1 x-intercept. All right, let's keep going. Let's look at number 3. So number 3 is not equal to 0. So the first thing we need to do before we pick up A, B, and C is we have to take this and move it over. It's positive on the right. So what does that mean when I move it over? It's going to change to a negative. So we have 10x squared plus x, and then that's a minus 3 equals 0. A is 10, B is 1, C is negative 3. So B squared minus 4 times A times C. Type that in your calculator. Xavier, what did you get for your discriminant? Anybody else get negative 119? What else did we get? What'd you get, Steven? You got who? Positive or negative? Positive 121. Anybody else get positive 121? Let me see here. I think it is positive 121. So I can look at your if you got negative 119, raise your hand. I'll see. Because we got to figure out what we minus 4a. C was negative. You didn't make it negative. So it's really important that you type it in exactly the way. 1 minus 4. Oh, yeah, that's right. Anybody get negative 119? And need help typing it in? All right, so the answer is positive 121. So because it's positive, what does that tell us? How many solutions do I have? 2 solutions. Anytime you get a positive number, that means that we have 2 solutions. Let's look at 4. All right, 4 is a little tricky because we have this minus 2 over here. So when I bring it over, what I'm doing is adding it to what? To its like term, which is 5. So that gives me 10x squared plus 3x plus 7 equals 0. So A is 10, B is 3, C is 7. So B squared minus 4 times A times C. Go ahead and type that in your calculators. Yes. So if we go back to the first page, the formula from the discriminant, let me go back. What that's coming from is right here. Is this part, this is called the quadratic formula. But right now we're just doing this part, which is B squared minus 4AC. You don't need to memorize this. This will be given to you on the test. All right, so let me give you all a minute, and I'm going to pick somebody to give me their answer. All right, King, what did you get? Negative 271. Who agrees with King's answer? Oh, that's a lot of people. I'm going with it. So because it's negative, what does that mean? How many x-intercepts will we have? 0. This has no solution. It has 0 solutions. If it's 0... if it's negative, our parabola does not quite cross the x-axis. All right, last one. Let's go ahead and do number 6. First step is we got to do what? Subtract the 6. So let's subtract 6 from 1. So that'll be 6x squared minus 7x. Now in your calculator, type in 1 minus 6. 1 minus 6 is your new C value. I'm passing out homework 3. You only have to do the front side today, which is the discriminant. It's what we just covered today. Try to get the front side done before you leave while you have calculators. And then tomorrow we'll start working on the back. just 4 questions to do today. For today. Did I give that, Rose? Did you get one? Jay, you got one? Everybody got one? All right. So what did you get for C? What is 1 minus 6? -5. Good. So A is 6, B is -7, C is -5. So in your calculators, -7 is in parentheses, -4, A times C. Anybody want to volunteer what they got? What'd you get, Katie? Positive 169. Anybody else get that? So what does that mean when we get a positive number? 2 solutions. So today we're not figuring out what the solutions are. We're not doing that today. That's not today's goal. Today's goal is for you to figure out, well, how many solutions will you have? All right, so for the last 15 minutes, I want everyone to work on the homework 3 that I just passed out. Focus on the front side. There are 4 questions where you just have to tell me the discriminant, how many solutions you have. Get that done before you leave, and then tomorrow we'll start working on the whole quadratic formula.